But I think that's the key, is like doing it when you want to, when it feels right for you, rather than taking initiative when it doesn't feel right and forcing it. Because I say this all the time on my podcast, like if you're doing something in the wrong energy, whatever you're trying to accomplish, like it's not doing what you think it's doing. In fact, you're taking a step backward. It's not doing what the result is not going to be what you think it is, because it's not the right energy.
Hello and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name is Ariana Joy. I'm your host. I'm a human design reader and teacher, and I am so excited because we are here with my friend Lynnsey Robinson, who has not been on the podcast for a while. Lynnsey is a certified hypnotherapist and intuitive guide and general overall badass. And today we wanted to talk about a few different things, but we've both kind of been feeling, I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't want to say blocks around manifestation, right, Lynnsey? We were kind of talking about like the seasons of kind of feeling like you are not in like the manifesting period. Like you're not in that energy almost, you know?
Yeah. I think every year around this time, I find myself and by the way, this time would be like anywhere from September to January, right? Like late summer, fall, winter. I just don't want to be doing things I don't want to be doing. And in the spring, in the summer even, I find myself much more high energy, ready to go. Let's do it. Let's put out the project. Let's launch it. And then as nature winds down and kind of goes within and hibernates, I find myself wanting to do that too. And it's only been in the past, I don't know, maybe this is the first year I'm noticing myself really giving myself permission to let that be okay, and to let myself just take a break and hibernate, metaphorically. I mean, I guess maybe I would sleep longer if I could, but just kind of, if I don't want to do it, if it doesn't feel like something that would really light me up and excite me, there's no reason to be doing it. And in the past, I would force it. I would just be like, you shouldn't feel this way. You have to make it happen. You have to do it. And I would just do it. And of course it didn't work out the way I wanted. And of course it didn't get the results that I wanted, because it wasn't aligned. And I think after talking to you, my dear, and people like you who work with like, no, this is just how you are. It's okay to be this way. And I know with my human design, it's respond, right?
Respond. Yeah. But I have something to say about that is so funny and applicable from what you're
exactly.
saying.
But I do find myself giving myself permission to not just go and do it, not chase things, but rather wait to respond. So that's something I definitely wanted to bring up to you today in particular, because you were the first person that kind of gave me that permission to be like, no, you don't have to do it. You don't have to chase
Oh my
it.
God.
Yeah.
Really?
So whenever I find myself like letting myself off the hook for not forcing something or not pushing through and not chasing and making something happen, and rather responding instead, I just always think of you. Yeah. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling to know that you can just be in your design and everything will be okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the first thing I wanted to say was I had to laugh when you were like, if I could sleep in later. Lynnsey has 3 young sons.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Adorable. They're so cute, but
Yeah.
like, probably don't let you sleep very long. And then the second thing I was going to say that's so funny, Lynnsey, is like there are so many reasons for so many different people with different designs, because we're all conditioned to push, right? We're all conditioned to push through these hibernation periods or these periods where we want to pull back, but we're all designed to have them in some way. So there are lots of different ways this can happen for people, but it's so funny in particular for someone like Lynnsey, who is a manifesting generator, to feel like when she hits something, like, because I feel like you might be going through a plateau right now, or which, you know, manifesting generators technically don't go through as much as pure generators like me, because they jump from thing to thing so quickly, because how you're built is that when you hit a point as a manifesting generator where your body's like, okay, we're done. We need to wait for the next thing to respond to. And that will push us through to the right place at the right time. Because manifesting generators have a little bit of manifesterness in them, and because we're all trained to initiate like manifestors, it's actually the easiest to condition manifesting generators into doing into trying to initiate when that's wrong for them, because
Yeah.
their bodies are like, well, I could just slip into initiating, so fuck
Yeah.
waiting, right? Because like even peer generators don't want to wait, but we don't have that ability to like slip into trying to initiate as easily. So we're just sitting there like, why does nothing work? Like, I hate this and I suck. And manifesting generators are like, bye, and just take off. But the thing is,
What is interesting too
yeah.
is I live in a house, my husband's generator, and all three of my boys are generators.
Mm.
So that is interesting that you say that. I'm gonna have to watch for that. I'm gonna have to observe my family because you are a generator.
I'm a pure generator, but you know it's
Yeah.
so funny. It's because my dad's a lot like you in that way, and it's interesting because both my dad and Lynnsey, like a lot of manifesting generators, this is fine. I did not think that this episode was going this way, but I just am
I
fascinated by
told
it.
you.
Yeah, I know. Lynnsey was like, "This will go exactly where it needs to." We kind of came to this episode being like, "What are we going to talk about?" Beats me. Let's find out.
My
But
favorite thing to do though is just go in just to talk. You guys are just hanging out with us, which is a really cool
yeah.
feeling.
I know. Yeah, you guys are so lucky. But it's funny because like similar to you, Lynnsey, like my dad will do that kind of thing where it's like, come on, let's go. Like let's do something, right? Even if it's not necessarily, time to do something according to what your body is telling you. The body might be saying like the thing to take action on isn't here yet. And, on the outside, like yeah, that can lead to success. I'm not saying that that's never going to. And that's why a lot of the time, like, especially in business and entrepreneurship, a lot of the people you see, being really seen or rising to the top or doing things in a traditionally like grab life by the balls kind of way with business, those people are manifesting generators. But it can still create a lot of frustration for them. And they could be doing so much better if they just waited to respond. Because my dad has created a lot of frustration for himself and been like, why am I at this dead end? And I'm like, because you were trying to initiate and that's not right for you, right? Like if you just trusted your body and trusted that life is going to send you the next thing, which like, honestly, MGs, here's some good news. It's like going to come so quickly most of the time. Like if you just allow it, you guys are excited by so many different things. Like the next thing is going to come. Just wait a second, right?
Yeah. That's the hardest part though, is waiting a second. Just wait a second. No. What? Wait? No. I'll just do it. But then, it doesn't work out. And then you're just like, you think it's you when really it's just, well, it is kind of, you're just not listening. And
You think it's your fault, and it is.
but not for the reason you think. It's not because you're terrible. It's just because you misread the signals that you were getting. And I've misread my signals as a manifesting generator. I didn't even know what human design was. Like before we knew what it was, I think back at how many signals I missed. Like I just missed so many signals. I took what I was being given and translated it in a way that made me hustle and made me push and made me force, when the same signal could be just telling me like, just wait a second. It's going to happen. You don't have to do this. You can, but you don't have to do this, and something better will come along. And so I think it's just about not like taking it in as like you're bad at it or whatever. Just how could I be misreading this? Like I'm misreading signals. That's okay. Now I have a better translator. I can listen better.
I love that. And you know what's funny too, Lynnsey, is I was just looking at your design. And so Lynnsey has an undefined heart center like I do. I have a completely open heart center, which means I have no gates. I have no energy coming out of that center. And the heart center, for anyone who doesn't know, has to do with like will, ambition, drive, very much like go get it energy, push through kind of thing. And Lynnsey and I have inconsistent access to that. And we pick up on that energy and we amplify it from the outside world. But because Lynnsey has gate 26 coming out of her undefined heart center, which is like very much a go get it energy, even though she has the design of someone who's not really built to like have consistent motivation and drive and ambition, like, someone like my sister, she will still feel that, like, I think out of all people with undefined heart centers, still feel that push to like, go prove, go get it, go make it happen. Like 26 is like Tony Robbins energy of kind of like, why wouldn't I just like go grab it and get it, right?
And it makes perfect sense for me. And it also, of course, because in my head, I'm like, well, I was able to do this before. There's nothing that's changed. So why can't I just do it? Like it's that inconsistency that I never really paid attention to, or that it was natural for it to be inconsistent. I felt like if I could do it once, I can do it a million times. And why shouldn't I? And why can't I? There must be something wrong. Like what's going on? When looking at it this way is like, no, you were never supposed to do this. you just got lucky a few times. It's okay not to do it again. Like it's such a good, it's a nice breath of fresh air. And there, it doesn't mean that I don't want to do that sometimes, but I think that's the key is like doing it when you want to, when it feels right for you, rather than taking initiative when it doesn't feel right and forcing it. Because I say this all the time on my podcast. Like if you're doing something in the wrong energy, whatever you're trying to accomplish, like it's not doing what you think it's doing. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a step backward. It's not doing the result is not going to be what you think it is because it's not the right energy. And so it's paramount to just listen to how you feel and act on that. I've never heard anybody say it that way that you just said it. Is like, you were never supposed to be able to do this, but you have this gate 26 that just allows you to be able to do it sometimes. But I take that in those few lucky times that I was able to do it as like, well, I should just be able to do this all the time. But
I should have
no,
access to this energy all the
yeah,
time.
but
Yeah.
that's not accurate. And that makes me feel great. Really does.
It's very freeing when
It's
you
so
accept that it
freeing.
doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
Because that's one of the
Yeah.
worst feelings for me is like, no, you have to, you should, you have to do it. You have to do it. And that's just like so heavy.
Mm.
But I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it. And neither do you, listener, that this resonates with.
Yeah. And I mean, when you were saying like, I just got lucky that one time, and like maybe I think another way of kind of saying it too would be like, this was the right time for me to be doing
Yeah.
that at that time. It's not always the right time for me to be doing that. So the stars aligned for me as they were supposed to. And then
Yeah.
that means that that was the right time then. But like you were saying, like just because it worked then doesn't mean you constantly have to repeat that every time. There are different ways of it working at different times. And for people with undefined heart centers, like that's one of the biggest things that we have to know is that, there are times for us to push and ride that motivation energy and move forward. And then there are times when it's not there. Like we were never supposed to identify with that in the first place. We were just supposed to
Right.
use it to our advantage when we could. So it doesn't matter if it's not there all the time. If we don't have something in our chart, we don't need it to succeed. So it's not about focusing on that and trying to make that consistent, just like any part of our chart that's undefined. It's about saying like, oop, thank you for this. I'm going to move forward with
Yeah.
that. And then next time I'm going to allow myself to do it the way that works then.
Exactly. Oh, that's so good. Yes. It's just a tool that you can use when it feels right. And also knowing that just because it doesn't feel natural and right now doesn't mean it's not going to again. I just get to relax while I wait for it to happen. That's the beauty of it.
And that's also like exactly how you find the thing, which is something I have to remind
Yeah.
myself of all the time,
Yeah.
like when my business is not doing something that I want it to, when something's not moving in the way that I want to, or it's not for me as a, like with my design, I'm like, I'm not feeling inspired. The biggest thing for me, especially with an undefined G center and as a generator, I'm like, I just don't know which way to go. Like, I'm like, I am directionless. I don't know my direction to take action on right now. And it's like, okay, well, maybe if you take a step back and stop looking for it, it could find you in a way that you really don't expect. And that's the case for a lot of people. I think that's a big lesson for generators, no matter how you were designed. Is when actually no, everybody in human design, like when you take that step back from how you think it should look and how you are expecting it, you give your body and the universe, which has like such a better idea of how this should happen for you and knows the million ways that it could and picks out the best one for you, like way better than your mind ever could. You give that yourself that space for that thing to actually come up for you, which is something I constantly have to remind myself of all the time. So if you listener have an issue with that, know that I am definitely not saying I'm perfect. I'm just preaching as a 5-1. I'm preaching exactly what I need to hear, which is how I learn it. Yeah. Well, so Lynnsey, when you are like, what have you learned from being in these periods of rest or these periods where it is not so action oriented, and also has that like ever yielded a result that you've seen where you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I just kind of took a step back and let myself be in this time?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard when you're in it. It's hard when you're knowing that you're going into it, for me at least. And as I say, this is the first year where it's been easiest. But on the outside, it looks like, okay, my husband's in TV production and he doesn't get gigs until like January. So this is his downtime as well. And when we're both he's not working because there's no gigs and I'm not feeling like I want to, it can look a little bit anxious. It can look a little bit like on the outside, like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And we're always fine. Like, that's the thing. When you're on the other side of it, you're like, what the heck? was I so worried about? And that's not true for everybody, but for me, that's what's been happening. And I know that I've never not been taken care of. Like I know that I've never not been taken care of. The universe has always taken care of me. And I've done my best in the last couple years, but definitely again, definitely this year is to really give myself what I need so the universe can give me what I need. I have to
Mm.
start from the ground floor, you know? And so, yes, the short answer is yes. Every single time when I feel like, oh, I should be doing this, but I'm not, and I should be, but the energy isn't right. And if it's not right, then when is it going to be right? And I'm never going to get a client again, and all these things. And it's works like I get so much business. The magic happens when I allow myself to chill. It's the allowing myself to chill that has always been the hardest part. It's getting better. I have to say it. Otherwise, it's an affirmation. You know what I mean? Like, I have to say it's getting better every day. And I'm getting a lot better at it because if I just say, oh, it's always been hard for me, guess what? It's always going to be hard for me. So that's in case anybody's wondering why I keep having to quantify it or qualify it. It's because my subconscious has no idea what's true and what isn't, only what I tell it. So I'm telling it that it's getting better, and it is. It really
That's the
actually is.
hypnotherapist speaking.
Yeah, I cannot say anything about myself. I can't even pretend to have negative self talk as an example for someone because I know that my brain has no idea if I'm joking. It has no idea if I'm being sarcastic. It does not know sarcasm or fantasy or whatever. It just knows what I tell it. So I am very careful about what I tell it. And I encourage everyone to just, notice. Notice how you're saying things because it is taking notes and it is very good at creating your reality. It's been doing it your whole life. Anyway, so this year when I've decided to let myself respond more versus create or initiate or, start stuff, force stuff, uh guess what happened? Well, Ariana reached out and was like, "Want to be on my podcast?" That's one of the things. I've had I've had events and summits and people just asking me to come and talk. I'd say more so in the last few weeks than probably the last few months. I've just my calendar is pretty full. Like right after this, I'm doing an Instagram live, which I never do Instagram lives, but I also don't want to initiate any Instagram lives. So I get asked instead. This is what happened. I got asked to do an Instagram live. I'm getting asked on, all kinds of things. And all I have to do is respond. Like all I have to do is decide if it feels like something I want to do, if it makes me feel good, and do it. And that's like it's almost hilarious when I tell people, especially like I was talking to my VA and I was like, yeah, I just decided to start living my human design. Guess what? I'm booked like with a lot of events, which is exactly what I want to be doing. It's very low, I guess, how I would say it's very low mental load. Like I don't have to think too much about it. I already know this stuff. I can come on and chat with you about anything, and we're going to have a great time. And we're going to, say things that will land very well on some ears, hopefully, and that will settle in just the right place where it needs to be for a lot of people. And that to me feels fun and it feels easy and it feels light and it's doing what I want it to do. And I think that that's the biggest payoff for me is, am I going to get the result I want? 100% yes. Let's do it.
Yeah. And when you were saying too about the like, how does it look when I'm in that time? Oh my gosh, I fight it every time.
Every
Like it's
time.
so crunchy for me. And we also both have gate 60, which is like blasting through obstacles and also seeing obstacles, just kind of being like a force. And this energy, like it's not always on, but it wants to be on, or like we want it to be on all the time. So there's times where it's like, oh, I don't have that push to
Yeah.
go through, but I want to work on this, right? Like I want to do this. Why is now not the time? Like I want to blast through this, but our bodies are saying it's not the time. It can create this like tension of like, I want to do it, but I also know I really just like there's no
Crunchy is a
push.
good word. I like that word that you used.
I use crunchy all the time. I feel like
I
I'm
like
like
it.
swimming in cornflakes sometimes. And that's literally how I imagine it. I imagine like walking on honey bunches of oats and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Oh,
There's a
wow.
crunchy period.
Interesting.
Um,
Mine's more like a sludge puddle, like not mud. It's like muckier than mud. That's what it feels like. It's like goop. It's like, it's like a slime. It's slimy.
Ooh,
Slimy for me.
slimy. Yeah,
Everybody's got
everyone
that
knows what we're
adjective.
talking about. Whatever. It's so funny. Lynnsey and I both have gate 56, which is like our like weird ways and metaphors of like explaining things. So, like we each have the one that's like so clear for us. And we're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, I see it as like cornflakes. when you were saying it, how does it look? What really came up for me is like part of the reason, and this is so, it's common for everyone, but it really is common for people with undefined heart centers. So if you have a defined heart center, please know that I'm not saying you're not part of this. When I am in that period of not working on something, honestly, I hate that this is still the case, but it's true for me. I worry so much about how that looks. Like, it's really the stories I'm telling myself about when I'm not doing something right now, whether it's like working or focusing on manifesting something, whatever, or like having my energy there. That is one of the biggest things for me. And honestly, that's still one of the biggest things that holds me back. And like now I know with human design why that is, and it's easier for me to work with it. But that could be like the main reason why you're fighting this and not letting your body flow in time with what it needs, you know? And know that like, even though you're not doing work right now, there is work being done. That's something
Oh
I always
God,
have to
yes.
remind myself. Like when I'm like so upset about something not happening, what I'll find is that I'll like write letters to myself or to my intuition, and it'll write back like, it's happening under the surface. You're just not
Yeah.
seeing it right now, you know? And then I feel bad about not working on it but I realize it's really not me who's judging that. I'm afraid of like other people judging that I'm not working on it in this way. When at the end of the day, I know that's not how I'm built for this to work, right? So I
Yeah.
have to ask myself, do you care about how it looks, or do you care about it actually being successful? Because if I care about it actually being successful, then I need to take a route that might not look like it's going to be successful, but I know is going to be successful for me. You know, it's just on the outside, I kind of have to deal with it looking a little lazy to other people sometimes, or like I'm going the wrong way, or I'm not thinking ahead, which is like one of my biggest things, especially as a Capricorn rising. I'm like, don't you tell me that I'm not working hard enough. Don't you tell me
Yeah.
that I haven't planned this, because you don't even know
You
the
don't even
flow
know.
charts and Excel sheets that
Yeah.
I have created for this.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is if I don't show up on social media today, and I rarely want to show up on social media. Like I'll go through days where I'm not off, I'm never off. Like I'm doing story after story and just like putting I put like a month's long worth of stories in one day, and then I'm just off for like weeks. And I haven't really reconciled that, but my fear that I'm really trying to work on and get over that doesn't make sense is if I don't show up, people will forget about me and they won't ever see what I do, and they won't. And I get the algorithm, it can go that way sometimes, but I think I'd have to be gone for a really long time. And I still do podcasts every week, and I'm still like doing other things. I don't think Instagram is I give it way too much credit in terms of like my visibility. But yeah, that's just one of the things that I'm trying to work on. It's just like I have to show up on social media because other people will not see me otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It's for me, it doesn't really, when I think about it, and even when I say it out loud, it's like, that's very silly. You don't need to think that. You don't need to feel that way. Just go on when you want to go on. And you might find that you want to do it more if you don't have this much pressure to have to do it, you know,
Or pressure to be consistent all
to
the
be
time.
consistent. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's funny too when people are like, I'm just not showing up on social media enough. Maybe I'm biased because it's just me, but here's an example to other people. I'm 28 and I don't find anyone that I work with on Instagram. I don't use
Exactly.
Instagram for my business, you know, like,
Same.
yeah, I found Lynnsey because, and I think I told Kelsey this on a podcast. So Kelsey Aida, who's the co-host of High Vibe in It with Lynnsey, I found Kelsey because I was looking up online how to manifest something years ago. I think like 5 years ago. I was looking up like things on manifestation. I found Kelsey's blog, like a
Yeah.
blog post. And then I was like, oh, she has a podcast. And then I listened to the podcast. I was like, oh, she's cool. And then also her co-host is really cool. And then I found Lynnsey, and I've had Lynnsey on my podcast. I've worked with Lynnsey as a hypnotherapist. You know, you got a client out of literally someone else's blog post from like 2017,
Yeah.
which is nuts.
And that's the thing. Like, I know in my head, this is why I'm so eager to just talk. I'm so eager to go and do my podcast, to do other people's podcasts, I mean, I've warmed up to Instagram Live so much more than I ever did before. But this is why I just want to do that. I just want to talk, because that, when someone can hear me explain it, they're either going to be like, that's the girl I want to work with. I don't even need to know anything else. I like her. Her vibe is great. I know she knows what she's doing, or at least I hope that you know, she instills enough confidence that she can do it. Or they say, nah, she's not my vibe. That's okay. Instagram doesn't even come into the equation. And I'm not trying to, can I swear? I'm not trying to shit on Instagram. I think it's great. I think that a lot of people do find people on there. And if you're looking at my Instagram and you see that I'm the right fit for you, great. That's awesome. I just think that for me, I put way too much stock in what it's doing, what I think it's doing or should do versus what it's actually doing, which is not really much in the way of clients and business. It allows me to get on and like explain things to people, but so does this. And this is way cooler, I think.
Honestly, yeah, and it's unsurprising to me that that lives wouldn't be a generally consistent thing that you like doing because you have the two line in your
Tell
profile.
me,
The two
please,
line,
because the
yeah,
hermit.
two line's the hermit. The two line doesn't like want to show up
He
and
does
be
not.
seen by a lot of people. And like I had a 2-5 on the show named Kyla Derkosh, and she's awesome. And she has a very like active Instagram, but she uses graphics to,
Yeah.
explain how to use your design and astrology. And she was like, I'm not gonna go on a live and at all, and I'm definitely not going to do like reels of me dancing. I
Oh
do.
no, God,
She
could
was
you?
like, no, I
Throw up.
do like what are they called, master classes and things like that, and that works for me because that's how she can share her voice and talk. And it is important for you to do that too, Lynnsey, because you have channel 1-8, which is like all about using your voice for personal expression. And then
Yeah.
that's a big part of how people are going to find you. Also, you're a manifesting generator, so just like speaking and talking and like talking things into existence is a big way that you manifest. So all of
Mhm.
this stuff, the voice is really important for you, but like you can do it in a way that works for you. You can do it at a time that works for you.
As you said earlier, it's just so much more freeing to be able to be like, everything will work out so much better than I ever thought if I can lean into how I naturally am. And so much of us, we this was like one of the first sentences we said in the in this episode was like we're kind of trained not to be our natural selves. We're trained to fit into this like, you know, mold of what society expects. And I think I don't know if every generation says this, but I think that right now is we're probably seeing the biggest revolt or revolution going against that. And it's a lot of rewriting, it's a lot of remembering, it's a lot of deciding that you get to decide. The first decision you make is that you get to decide where your life goes. And there is never been a time in history where we have so many resources at our fingertips to literally do anything you want to do. What are you
Mhm.
waiting for? Lean into your human design and just do it. Anyway, I'm kind of talking to myself. I'm talking to other people, but I'm kind of talking to myself too.
Aren't we
Because
all? I mean, I love that you said that too, because I was thinking this the other day, and this is like, and I'm sure this is not what Lindsay means either. Like, this is not to pressure you that, like, if you're not achieving what you want right now, because then it's your fault, because
right.
literally that's the opposite of
Oh
what
my
we've been
God.
talking about this entire
Yeah.
time. That makes me think of is like the other day I was thinking, gosh, with so many different channels and avenues, with all the different ways we have of doing things now that can work for people, there are people who run their businesses entirely on social media. There
Yep.
are people who, like me, don't use social media at all. There are people who use YouTube. There are people who like use ads on Google, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There are people who still have brick and mortar and like flyers and like word of mouth. With all of these different ways that have worked for people and that you can use, the fact that we still think there's only one way to do things blows my mind. And like the
Yeah.
fact that I still think that sometimes and like I get stuck in that is I'm like, Ariana, this is like of
Yeah.
all times in the world, this is the time to embrace that. So we really just need to, but the conditioning is still there. So I understand why, because we have generational conditioning about this. We have this conditioning beyond generations that we can even think of.
Yeah.
People whose names are like erg, from, like there's single
Yeah.
syllables, from back then of saying, no, this is the way you do this, and this is the only way you're going to survive and stay alive in your tribe and your collective
Mhm.
in the world. And so we still think that we can't do that. So we have to be brave enough to step out of that, to embrace when we don't want to do things, to embrace the way that we do want to do things and when we actually want to do that stuff, and know that that can work for us. And this is a part of the era that we're in right now. Like this is an important like way that we play our role. And that's how things don't just work out, in the world, but also
Yeah.
for us in our personal lives as well. So I just
Well,
had to say that. That made me want to go off on a tangent.
no, absolutely. And I think first, there are so many things I want to say, but one of the things is, with all the resources, all the tools, all the avenues that you could go down at if you have a phone, if you're listening to this podcast, you have some type of technology that can make you money. You definitely do. So, like, again, if you're not doing that or it doesn't feel aligned, please listen to your body and listen to what you need right now. But the point is, the opportunity is always there. And if the only thing holding it, so we know that it's not resources, we know that it's not, what's the word? Opportunity. It's if you're not doing what you want to do and it's something going and you're blocked because of conditioning, guess what? You're listening to a hypnotherapist. This is my bread and butter. That's where I play. That's my favorite thing, is helping you understand that your mind, your subconscious will literally do whatever you want it to do. You just have to teach it what is safe. So right now, the program that you're running on is what your subconscious understands as safe. It's what it understands as what will keep you alive. If you want happy, if you want fulfilled, if you want, romantic, that's stuff you just have to install. I know it's a weird word to say, but we have the best computer in the world in our head. Like, is your software out of date? Are you afraid of things that you really don't need to be afraid of anymore, but you still are because your brain, your mind still thinks that it's a fear? When you're a kid and your mom says, don't touch the stove, it's hot, it'll burn you. That's a good fear to have. When you get older and you need to cook eggs, you need to kind of let go of that fear a little bit so you can make food, right? So it's the same way as you're walking through life. It's okay that you still have these things, but also understand that you don't have to. You really don't have to. And if it's not serving you, you definitely don't have to have it. And you can start to instill new things and shiny new beliefs that will get you actually where you want to go and feeling better. Another tangent, but yeah, it was important for me to say, like, if the only thing holding you back is your mind and what you think is you're allowed to do, that's easy. I mean, it's not easy. It's simple. I'll say that. It is a simple thing to address. It's not necessarily easy for everyone.
Yeah, and technically human design is simple too, but
Exactly.
if we don't have stuff like hypnotherapy or, brain rewiring or, healing where we can release these blocks, then it can be a lot harder to actually lean into our designs to make it happen. Because even if we're like, okay, great, this is the way I'm built to work, if you're still feeling this block around like, yeah, but I actually don't think that's possible, then you're not going to use it, right? And that a lot of that comes down to the mind or in subconscious subconscious programming. And so, that's how you can make it kind of all come together. But anyway, Lynnsey, this has been such an amazing talk that went in so many different directions that I loved. But thank you so much for being here. I always love having you on.
You have to come. You have to ask me back because you did say you were going to do my chart, and I really want like a quick little analyze. I know you did a little bit already, but I still have so many questions. I think we all do. I have so many questions about my human design. So if you ever want to
ask them, come on the podcast
we'll
and
talk
ask
about
them.
it.
People, anybody who has that in their chart will be like, tell me more.
It's just so cool. I'm so happy that I have human design in my life. And I'm so happy to know people like you that know so much about it that I can just come to and ask. And you're just so much fun to talk to. So anyway, thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
Anytime. And you rock. Everyone listening, you rock.
Yes.
And I will talk to you next time.